Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Mindful Child: How to Help Your Kid Manage Stress and Become Happier, Kinder, and More Compassionate, by Susan Kaiser Greenland. Narrated by Angela Brazil. Introduction. The new ABCs: Attention, Balance, and Compassion. May the world be happy. May the world be clean. May the world never end. May the world be this way. May everything come true. Friendly Wishes poem by Inner Kids elementary school student. After my son's 6th birthday party, I watched from the kitchen window as the few remaining children played in the backyard. The girl from next door was doing cartwheels across our lawn, which was littered with deflated balloons. My son and his friend sat on the steps and paged through a book of cartoons he had received as a present. It was a wonderful, peaceful afternoon. Suddenly, the calm broke. The kitchen door flew open, and my son and his friend ran in, both boys near tears. I asked them what was wrong, but they were overexcited and couldn't get the words out. No one was in danger, but the boys had worked themselves into such a state that they couldn't calm down. So I took a snow globe from the bookshelf and wound up the music box at its base. I shook the snow globe, put it down on a table, put my hand on my abdomen, and asked the boys to put their hands on their tummies. Together, we felt our breaths move up and down as we watched the snow fall and settle in the globe. My son's friend was almost gasping as he tried to hold back his tears. When the snow had settled to the bottom of the snow globe, I shook it again. As we watched the water in the globe gradually clear, we felt ourselves breathing. Soon we could see the figures inside the snow globe, and the boys' breathing had slowed, their bodies had relaxed and calmed. Now we could talk about what had scared them. I use this breathing technique, and ones like it, to help children calm themselves when they feel overwhelmed, and the transformative power of breathing never ceases to amaze me. Breathing is the most natural thing in the world, the foundation of our lives. We do it without thinking about it, but by tapping into the power of this simple act, we can better manage stress and live happier lives. The aim of this book is to help you help your children do just that, to tap into their awareness of breathing, the physical world, and their inner lives, and to develop their attention skills, tools that they will carry with them through their entire lives. You can learn a lot by paying attention to your children's breathing. When my first child, Allegra, was born, I became more attuned to the breathing of those around me. The first time I held her, I watched her breathe for a while, and each breath reassured me that she would be all right. My son, Gabe, was born 2.5 years later, and hearing the steady in and out of his breathing was as reassuring to me as the sound of his sister's breathing. Allegra and Gabe's breathing would always be their companions, and they would become mine. I took what I had learned from my children into other relationships, too. I began to sit with family members who seemed helpless due to youth, old age, or illness, and I listened for the sound of their breathing, hearing in each breath a promise that we would spend another day together. Years later, I would look back and recognize these moments as ones of mindful awareness, a powerful practice that I later studied formally. Your children's breathing is the swinging door between their inner and outer worlds. Most of us know intuitively that tuning into our own breath is useful, but we can forget that paying attention to other people's breathing can let us know how they are reacting to life experience. If you take the time to be observant, the speed, depth, pace, and intensity of your children's breathing will convey how they feel and even signal possible health issues. Your children's breathing can give you a glimpse of their lives from the inside out. You can become more mindful through simple acts, such as taking a moment in your children's bedroom to watch them peacefully and breathe with them before you wake them for school. You can observe your spouse's or partner's breathing to get a sense of what he or she is experiencing and better synchronize your pace with his or hers. You can connect deeply with an aging or ill parent by putting aside any thoughts or emotions that might be on your mind for just a moment to tune in to his or her breathing. By slowing down simply to notice other people's breathing, you can gain insights into their worlds that you might otherwise miss. And you may also gain insights into your own. Your children's breathing is not only a message from their inner worlds, it tells you about their outer world as well. For example, their relationship with you, with siblings, with authority figures, with peers, and with the social world in general. You can especially see this in action when they interact with friends. I learned a lot about my daughter by observing her as she rows with her crew team. Each spring, her team competes in regattas throughout California. The intense physicality and concentration of the athletes as they synchronize their strokes is stunning. Their breath powers the boat. One breath, one stroke, with a laser-like focus that is fueled by years of training and the sweat of many, many races. Each stroke calls for focus on the present moment, what's happening right now, wisdom gleaned from other races, past experience, and determination to put every bit of their effort toward a common goal, the drive to win the race. When racing well, the rowers are completely attuned to one another, and the alert, visceral, and interconnected way they work together is an example of relational, mindful awareness. My first formal experience with mindfulness meditation was in 1993, when Allegra was 2 years old, and I was 3 months pregnant with Gabe. We lived in New York City, and I was an in-house lawyer for ABC television with a happy family life, meaningful friendships, and a progressive job-sharing arrangement that allowed me to spend time at home with my toddler. Life was good. It was mind-bogglingly good until we got a message from the internist that my husband, Seth, had stage 4 lymphoma. Our lives changed in an instant. We needed to make sense of what had happened and manage the stress that lay ahead. We read books and spoke to friends. Ultimately, Seth brought me to the Zen Center to manage my worry through meditation. The irony is not lost on me that although he had the cancer diagnosis, he took me to learn meditation. After an orientation meeting, we sat cross-legged on buckwheat-filled meditation cushions, faced a blank white wall, and began the process of mindfulness training. In the eerie quiet, my thoughts were deafening. I could not sit still. Seth started chemotherapy. I quit my job, and we moved from Manhattan to a rented house in upstate New York. We hoped the slower pace of life would help Seth beat cancer, and it did. We ate organic food when we could get it. Gabe was born. Seth became involved in a radical course of alternative cancer therapy, and I tried meditation again. Through recordings by meditation teachers Jack Kornfield and Joseph Goldstein, I learned of a Buddhist meditation practice known as mindfulness of breathing. The classical instruction for this type of meditation is: having gone to the forest, to the foot of a tree, or to an empty hut, you sit down, folding your legs crosswise, holding your body erect, setting up mindfulness in front of you. Ever mindful, you breathe in. Mindful, you breathe out. For parents, even the first step, find a quiet place with few distractions, can be challenging. But with some ingenuity, it is possible for parents to find time to meditate, which is the foundation of mindfulness practice. One of my favorite words from classical mindfulness teachings is householder, which means layperson, and is used to distinguish those who meditate but have not taken monastic vows from Buddhist monks. The word householder aptly reflects the life of a parent who juggles myriad, often competing, responsibilities, and every day proves the truth in the saying, "If you need to get something done, ask a busy person to do it." Somehow, they manage kids, jobs, and community obligations, and they still attend parent meetings at their kids' schools, serve hot lunches, coach sports teams, sew costumes, and drive carpools. Parents have such busy lives that it might seem impossible to find a quiet place to meditate, even for a short period of time. But no matter how many children and how many responsibilities we have, there's room in our schedules to meditate. We'll just have to be creative about figuring out when and where. Parents meditate at strange times and in strange places. On a cushion in their bedrooms, first thing in the morning, at the kitchen table while their children are napping, in the carpool lines, and while walking the halls of hospitals and retirement homes. We grab whatever time is available to us, wherever and whenever we can. We meditate when we're sitting, when we're walking, and when we're lying down, so that we can take the mindfulness developed during formal meditation into our daily lives. It's tough, but we can find pockets of time. The next step in mindful breathing is setting up mindfulness in front of you. Ever mindful, you breathe in. Mindful, you breathe out. The phrase ever mindful can be confusing, especially since there are several different connotations for the word mindful, now that meditation has entered secular culture. But here's a classical description of mindfulness that those new to meditation often find helpful. Mindfulness is a mirror of what's happening in the present moment. In other words, when practicing mindfulness, you see life experience clearly, as it happens, without an emotional charge. We learn how to do this by feeling our present moment experience, as it happens, without analyzing it, at least for the time being. To notice something and not analyze or think about what it means is a radical idea for many of us. It requires quieting your thoughts, emotions, and reactions, keeping your mind out of the way, so that you can take in information from your inner and outer worlds and see it clearly without the filter of preconceived notions. And you can achieve this seemingly impossible task simply by focusing on your breathing. Keep your mind on the feeling of your breath as it moves from the tip of your nostrils into your chest and back out again. If your mind wanders, which it usually does, that's okay. When you see that it's wandered, bring it back to the feeling of the movement of your breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Let everything else drop away for the length of one breath, and feel what it's like to be alive right now, in the present moment. This and other meditation techniques like it have been practiced for thousands of years by all major religions and contemplative traditions. These practices systematically develop attention while encouraging kindness, compassion, and self-knowledge. Mindful awareness promotes physical and mental well-being as well as character and ethical development, a claim supported by growing data from major universities around the world. Many people find that it just makes them happier. Mindfulness practice helped me reorganize unhealthy patterns of thinking and reacting to life experience without judging myself harshly. It also showed me the way to a joyful and transcendent state of well-being that I had previously stumbled upon, but didn't know how to access intentionally until I learned to meditate. Once I saw its benefits in my own life, I wondered if mindfulness would help my children. How much richer might their childhoods be if they could use age-appropriate mindful awareness techniques? I soon discovered, however, that while there were hundreds of places where adults could receive secular training, as well as many good books they could read, there were no secular programs or books about teaching mindfulness to children at the time. It occurred to me that perhaps I could adapt the mindfulness techniques I practiced to make them appropriate for my family. I began developing simple practices and teaching them to Gabe and Allegra. There was absolutely nothing scientific about what I was doing, but the kids were interested, and I soon sensed a change in them. Had you asked them if they were practicing mindfulness, they would have denied it. But they nonetheless used breath awareness to help them slow down when they were overexcited and become calmer when they were upset. Both children were less reactive to big and small irritants than they had been before. Something was working, so I became a bit more daring. I met with the director of the Boys and Girls Club in Santa Monica, California, in the fall of 2000, and offered to volunteer 2 hours a week to teach in their after-school daycare program. While the director was initially reluctant, and no wonder given that I had no scientific credentials at the time, he agreed, and I began improvising classes in the art room. My friend, Dr. Susie Tortora, a dance therapist who teaches children breath awareness and movement, visited from New York and helped me incorporate mindful movement into the classes. During that period, I developed many of the core practices I teach today. In 2001, another friend, Steve Reedman, a public school teacher in Los Angeles, heard what I was doing and asked me to work with his students. He had a particularly rambunctious class and was looking for any outside help to manage it. Reedman's students embraced the program, and to everyone's surprise, some of the kids even began taking the practices home and teaching them to their parents. My favorite story from that year, one that has since been repeated many times by parents of children from different cities, was shared by the mother of a 10-year-old girl. She described driving her children to school during morning rush hour when traffic had come to a standstill. The mom became understandably frustrated, honking at other cars and frenetically trying to find a traffic report on the radio, when, out of the back seat, a little voice said, "Mom, just take 3 deep breaths. It'll calm you down." The woman took her daughter's advice, and the tension eased. It didn't stop them from being late, but they arrived at their destination considerably less frazzled than usual. That day, mindful awareness had a new convert in the parent body of the school. Support for the program continued to build, and by the end of the first year, students, teachers, parents, and administrators all considered the project a success. Significantly, the general atmosphere in the classroom had improved, and Reedman attributed that improvement, at least in part, to mindfulness. I returned to Reedman's class the following year, and slowly, through word of mouth, teachers and administrators at other schools asked me to teach. Teaching mindful awareness in schools is deeply gratifying and has the potential to make a large-scale, positive impact on our society. This benefit, however, while great, is different from the benefit that accrues to kids when their entire family system practices mindful awareness. The more I worked with schools, the more I recognized the inherent limitations in working with children outside of the family system. Psychotherapist and meditation teacher Trudy Goodman and I started a small family program in my backyard in order to work directly with parents and their children. Most parents who come to me hope that their children grow up to be people who, even during the most stressful or provocative situations, choose to give themselves enough time to develop a perspective that will help them make sound, productive decisions. They want their children to live happier lives. Some of these parents are looking to mindfulness as a spiritual practice, but most of them are not. They want to help their children develop life skills, like how to approach experience with curiosity and an open mind, calm down when they're angry or upset, concentrate and ignore distractions, see what's happening in, to, and around them, other people, and the environment, clearly and objectively. Develop compassion. Develop pro-social qualities like patience, humility, happiness for the good fortune of others, generosity, diligence, and equanimity. Live gently and in balance with other people and their environment. Some young people have a hard time learning and applying these life skills, but most are well able to practice mindful awareness when they receive clear and concrete instruction and live in an environment supportive of the process. This is especially true when the practices are fun and kids begin to see for themselves how mindfulness can help them navigate even the most challenging real-life situations. This book will show how you and your children can develop these hugely beneficial skills in your own home. I was inspired to write this book by the parents who reached out because their children had problems that they hoped mindfulness training could help. One child was friendless, for example, and the parents could not understand why. Another was starting fights in school, and his parents were afraid that the school would expel him, or worse, that he would seriously hurt another child or himself. A third child had trouble sleeping and often awoke in the middle of the night and began to cry, not knowing why or how to stop. A fourth child was in frequent pain due to illness, made worse by tension in her mind and body. Another seemed to be a model child, except that she put so much pressure on herself she collapsed whenever she experienced anything less than perfection. The parents of these children felt desperate and were willing to give anything a try if there was a remote possibility it could help. The children whose stories are told throughout the book are composites of children with whom I've worked. No real names or identifying details are used. Let's start with Nick, Melody, and Charlotte. Nick, a sixth grader referred to me by his physician, complained of being unhappy, truly unhappy, and over time he had developed sleep and digestive problems. His doctor was quite sure that no underlying medical disorder could account for Nick's sadness, although both his physician and parents accepted that his problems were serious and he needed help. By the time I met Nick, his schoolwork was suffering, as was his social life. When his mom picked him up from school, Nick often burst into tears, saying that he hated his life, his friends, everything and everyone but his family. I spoke with Nick about why he was unhappy. He told me he couldn't put his finger on anything in particular that was wrong, but he couldn't put his negative thoughts aside. Like many adults, he had never considered the possibility that a person could influence how he reacted to his thoughts and emotions. Nick believed that thoughts, positive as well as negative, just came into your head uninvited, and that there was little, if anything, you could do about it. Melody had been diagnosed with ADHD. When I first met her, she had difficulty looking at me, and she blurted out immediate and mostly unconsidered responses to everything I said, regardless of whether my statement called for a response. I guessed that this was the same way she interacted with her teachers and friends. Teachers are trained to understand this behavior, but other children greeted her impulsivity with rolling eyes and sniggers. It wasn't that her remarks were stupid. They were often insightful and clever, but she tended to offer them with much more enthusiasm than the situation called for, and with no sense of the pace or intensity of the conversation. Melody had few friends, and was not invited to playdates, the movies, or classmates' birthday parties. Charlotte, a high school junior, was referred to me for chronic, debilitating headaches. Charlotte was in the middle of an intense headache when she first came to see me. As her mom and I spoke, Charlotte moved to a corner of the room, listening to her iPod and drawing on a dry erase board. Charlotte's mom noticed what she was doing and called out, "Charlotte, don't push yourself right now. It will just make your headache worse." I was dumbstruck when I realized that Charlotte was powering through her headache, listening to Mandarin Chinese language tapes on her iPod and writing sentences on the board in Mandarin. Neither Charlotte nor anyone in her family was Chinese. Charlotte was learning Mandarin because she hoped that foreign language fluency would look good on her college application. Her mother had done everything she could to convince her daughter to give herself a break, but nothing had worked. Charlotte persisted in believing that in everything she attempted, there were only two options: absolute perfection and abject failure. These children were smart people who had somehow locked themselves into an exhausting, downbeat way of seeing the world and relating to life experience. Mindful awareness can help children like Nick, Melody, and Charlotte shift their negative conceptual framework to a more positive one. Changing the way you think about things and react to life events takes hard work, practice, strong modeling, and guidance. But with appropriate effort, a supportive environment, and a bit of luck, the process will take hold, and then change will happen naturally. The first step in this process is learning to recognize what your conceptual framework is. Then, if necessary, working toward dismantling it in order to get a more accurate read on what's happening in, to, and around you. That's where mindful awareness practice can be quite helpful to those who are developmentally ready. 2,500 years ago, Aristotle observed that We are what we repeatedly do. And the same holds true now. What we think, say, and do today will...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?